Welcome back to the Sharing English podcast, where we explore stories from the English-speaking world, spoken slowly and clearly for curious English learners like you. Let's get started. Hey everyone, it's your host, Freya. Today we're talking about a very special anniversary, the 250th birthday of the United States of America. Now that raises an interesting question. Can a country really have a birthday? After all, countries are not people. They grow, change, expand, divide, struggle, and reinvent themselves over time. And yet, many countries celebrate important founding moments. For the United States, that date is July 4th, 1776, the day leaders from the 13 colonies officially adopted the United States Declaration of Independence. And in 2026, the United States turns 250 years old. Today, we're going to talk about what actually happened on July 4th, 1776, why Americans celebrate it so passionately, how the country has celebrated major birthdays in the past, what the 250th anniversary means today, and why national anniversaries often reveal both pride and contradictions within a country's history. So what really happened on July 4th, 1776? One thing that sometimes confuses people, even Americans, is this. July 4 was not the beginning of the American Revolution, and it was not the end of the war either. By 1776, fighting had already begun between Britain and the American colonies. Tensions had been growing for years over issues like taxation, political representation, trade restrictions, and the power of the British government over colonial life. Eventually, many colonial leaders decided they no longer wanted to remain part of the British Empire. So on July 4, 1776, representatives from the colonies adopted the Declaration of Independence. This document announced to the world that the colonies considered themselves independent states. Important figures connected to this moment include Thomas Jefferson, who wrote much of the document, along with Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and many others. The Declaration famously states that all men are created equal, a phrase that would later become both inspirational and controversial because the reality of the country often failed to match those ideals and still fails. For many Americans, though, July 4 is much more than a history lesson. It's emotional, social, symbolic. Across the country, people celebrate with fireworks, cookouts and barbecues, parades, concerts, flags, and family gatherings. For many families, the holiday feels connected to summer itself. And honestly, many Americans probably do not spend the day thinking deeply about 18th century political philosophy, but maybe they should. But the holiday still matters because it represents an idea: independence, freedom, and national identity. For immigrants, July 4 can sometimes feel especially meaningful because it represents becoming part of the national story. And at the same time, many Americans also recognize that the country has not always lived up to its founding ideals. So the holiday can contain both celebration and reflection at once. One of the most interesting parts of this story is how the country has celebrated major anniversaries in the past. In 1876, the United States celebrated its 100th birthday. This celebration was called the Centennial. a huge World's Fair known as the Centennial Exposition was held in Philadelphia. The country was still recovering from the American Civil War, which had ended only 11 years before. So the Centennial became a way for Americans to focus on unity, progress, and industrial growth. The fair showcased inventions, technology, manufacturing, and American ambition. Just 10 years later, in 1886, France gifted the Statue of Liberty to the United States. The statue celebrated American independence, democracy, and friendship between France and the United States. Because France really came to the aid of the colonists during the American Revolution, and their support and help was really what pushed the revolution in favor of the colonists. Over time, the statue also became deeply connected to immigration, especially as millions of immigrants arrived through Ellis Island, just a short way away from Liberty Island. For many people arriving in the United States, the Statue of Liberty became a symbol of hope and possibility. Then came 1976, the 200th birthday of the United States. This celebration was called the Bicentennial. And yes, Bicentennial simply means 200th anniversary. The country celebrated with parades, fireworks, patriotic decorations, concerts, special coins and stamps, and enormous public events. One famous part of the celebration involved tall ships sailing into New York City. For many Americans who lived through the Bicentennial, it remains a very nostalgic national memory. And interestingly, this happened shortly after difficult years, including the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. So for some people, the Bicentennial helped restore a feeling of national unity and optimism. Now here's the most fun vocabulary challenge we have had yet. This year's 250th anniversary is officially called the semi-quincentennial. Semi-quincentennial. Yes, that's a real word. And honestly, many native speakers either avoid saying it or laugh when trying to. Let's break it down. Semi means half. Quin relates to 5. Centennial refers to 100 years. So a semi-quincentennial is half of 500 years. 250 years. Pronunciation-wise, most people say it like this. Semi-quincentennial. Semi-quincentennial. But thankfully, many people simply say America 250, which is much easier. Across the country, cities, museums, schools, and historical organizations are preparing events connected to the anniversary. The official initiative is called America 250. There will likely be historical exhibits, reenactments, concerts, educational projects, and major public celebrations. But not everyone will experience the anniversary in exactly the same way. Some people will focus mainly on patriotism and celebration. Others will focus more on reflection and criticism. And many Americans honestly feel both emotions at the same time. Because the story of the United States includes inspiring ideals, scientific and cultural achievements, and expanded rights over time. But it also includes slavery, inequality, Native people displacement, and many unresolved struggles and backward movement. Those contradictions are part of the national story too. So what does it mean for a country to turn 250? In some parts of the world, that sounds young. In other parts of the world, it sounds old. The United States has changed enormously in 250 years. Millions of immigrants arrived from all over the world. Laws changed, rights expanded, technology transformed daily life. The country grew more diverse and more connected to the wider world. And perhaps one of the most defining parts of the American story is that the country is always changing. It's still debating, it's still redefining itself, and it's still arguing about what its ideals truly mean. Let's go over a few of the useful words you heard in today's episode. Independence means freedom from outside control. Colony, a territory controlled by another country. Patriotism, pride and love for one's country. Anniversary, the yearly remembrance of an event. And reenactment, acting out a historical event again. And one more time with today's pronunciation challenge. Semi-quincentennial. You do not need to master this word to survive in English, but maybe it's a party trick you can save for later in life. In closing, for 250 years, the United States has celebrated ideals like freedom, self-government, and independence. But the country's history has also been full of conflict, debate, contradictions, and change. And perhaps that ongoing process, not perfection, is part of the American story itself. Now, I'm curious, how does your country remember its history or celebrate national identity? Do those celebrations focus more on pride, reflection, or something in between? Let me know. Thanks for listening to the Sharing English podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love it if you'd subscribe, leave a rating or review, and share the podcast with a friend who's also learning English. You can find out more about me and the podcast at our website, www.sharing-english.com. New episodes of the Sharing English podcast are available weekly wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, let me know, what topics are you interested in hearing more about? Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep sharing English.